One day, Beebo decided that it was time he went to work. What should he do? He could be a company director or a general manager. No, his hairstyle was wrong for a businessman. A big game hunter? Nope, Beebo would never hurt a fly. An ocean diver? No, he always got seasick. A policeman? No, he was afraid of gangsters. A fireman? Nope, he could sleep through a dozen alarm clocks. Santa Claus? Nope, he got the sniffles in cold weather. What then? I know, said Beebo to himself. I'll be a ticket puncher in the metro, the Paris Underground. Have you ever punched anything else? He was asked when he offered himself for the job. No, said Beebo. Come back tomorrow for a test, he was told. That night, Beebo spent hours practicing. He punched everything he could see, from the rent book to his best tie, and when he went back, he got the job. His work delighted him. He loved watching the trains go by, every 3 minutes in the rush hour, every 8 minutes at ordinary times, every 15 minutes at off-peak hours. But one day the great underground seemed sad and dull. The people, the trains, the station. What can I do to cheer it up? Beebo asked himself. I've always been cheerful. I think I know. He went out and bought a big bunch of flowers. He decorated his ticket puncher's box with the flowers. It looked pretty, and it smelled so sweet. It was as if the sun had come down into the metro. But nobody noticed the change. People kept staring at the ground, except the station master. We can't have this, he told Beebo. You can't make changes down here. Poor Beebo had to take down his flowers. From then on, he spent most of his time daydreaming about flowers, about birds, about the sun. He started to punch his holes in the wrong places. Sometimes he made only half a hole at the side of the ticket. But when it was time to go home, he felt happy again. He smiled as he left his underground prison to go back to his attic. His room was in an old part of Paris. There were no lifts in the building, and he had to climb 7 flights of stairs. But he didn't mind. He was very fond of step number 126. It was different from all the others. It creaked, but his favourite was the last one, right at the top. High up in Beebo's small room, Mop heard the noise of his footsteps on the stairs. Mop was Beebo's friend. They were always together. Is that you, Mop? Good evening. Hello, Beebo. I've been waiting for you, Mop answered. He was wearing his wonderful blue and white striped pullover that could stretch itself in every direction. It could be made into such strange shapes that his pet hamster, Hector, sometimes used it to live in. Beebo loved to tinker about with odds and ends. Give him some bits of wood or scraps of paper and a little glue, and soon he would have built a toy or clever machine as if by magic. Hector, like most hamsters, had a small wheel he used for running exercises. Beebo, with his clever fingers, had made him a playground where everything moved as Hector turned the wheel. At the weekends, Beebo and Mop went strolling. They had happy times walking beside the River Seine and through the parks and visiting the museums. But their favourite place was the flea market, where all sorts of odd things like old gramophones and pots and pans and bird cages and chests of drawers and coffee grinders were for sale. One morning, Beebo saw the kind of bed he had always dreamed about, a 4-poster with carved columns and gilt cherubs. He bought it at once, for though it was falling to pieces, he knew he could easily repair it. But when he got it home, he found it would not fit into his room, and he had to take it apart and leave the pieces in the passage, which did annoy his neighbour. On Monday morning, Beebo returned to work. He wore his cap and uniform and carried his ticket puncher. He did not feel happy away from the sun. "Ah, well," he thought, "the time will pass, and I'll soon be back in the fresh air. Ah, I wish I could flutter in the sunshine like a butterfly." Suddenly, Beebo rubbed his eyes. He could not believe what he saw. There, coming out of the long, dark tunnel, was a pretty yellow butterfly. "The poor creature," he murmured. "What will become of it in these dreadful dungeons? I must capture it and take it back to the light." Beebo rushed after it, trying to catch it in his cap. At this moment, the first passengers began to arrive. There was no ticket puncher. Unfortunately for Beebo, it was also the very moment that the station master decided to come and inspect the platform. He looked most annoyed. A few minutes later, both Beebo and the butterfly were sharing their new freedom in the streets above the metro. They had been put outside without delay, the butterfly by Beebo, and Beebo by the station master. Beebo was delighted. He walked for hours through the sunny streets, the flower-filled squares, the green gardens loud with bird-song. He did start to worry every so often about how he was now going to earn a living, but only for a very few seconds at a time. When he finally reached home, however, a pleasant surprise awaited him. There was a letter from a lawyer under the door. "See me as soon as you can," it said. Beebo sat in the lawyer's musty office and listened to the old man. "I'm pleased to inform you that you have inherited a house." Beebo gasped with excitement. He hardly heard the rest of the lawyer's remarks. "The building is already old. It stands in large grounds and has several other buildings attached to it. I have been instructed—" Beebo was thinking how thrilled Mop would be when he told him about this inheritance, which had come at just the right time. "I am the owner of an old residence," Beebo would say. "Perhaps it would be a great mansion, or it might even be a wonderful castle." He could hardly wait to see it. But the next morning, when Beebo and Mop went to view the house, they were disappointed. The place was in ruins. Beebo could not be gloomy for long. He nodded determinedly. "After all," he said, "a house in ruins is much better than no house at all." Suddenly he heard a shout from Mop. "Beebo, come here!" Mop had found a car. But what a car! It was a car that looked almost as old as the ancient building itself. But Beebo did not care. Everything seemed bright again. "We've got our own car, a place to live, plenty of fresh air," he told Mop. "We mustn't lose a moment. To work! At once!" No sooner said than done. Between them both they took the car apart, straightened out the dents, overhauled and oiled and put together every separate piece, tightened all the screws, and cleaned and polished it until it shone. The car still looked old, but very, very beautiful. When Mop started the engine, it ran as perfectly as Hector's little playground. What more could anyone want? With such fine transport, it would be easy to collect material to restore the house. They made hundreds of trips. They went to every second-hand dealer in the district. The car carried many tons of wood and bricks and old junk back to the house. All the money that Beebo had saved when he had a job was used up. As for all the hours that the two friends spent on rebuilding, only the sun and the moon would be able to count them, for Beebo and Mop were busy night and day, erecting scaffolding, hammering, painting, laying bricks, sawing, planing. But one fine clear morning, The outside work was finished. Just take a look. Beebo was proud of the work he and Mop had done, and with good reason. Their house was different from any that had ever been built before. It had the look of a house you see only in dreams. At last, Beebo had somewhere to erect his four-poster bed. He cleaned the drapes, polished the columns, and restored the gilt cherubs. Then he put on his best pyjamas and slipped between the sheets. He was so happy. But no matter how splendid a house looks on the outside, it is not much use if it is uncomfortable within. Now, somehow they had to get furniture and fittings. Beebo would have to get a job. All his savings were gone. Beebo built a marvellous shop on wheels. In summer he sold ice cream, and in winter hot, sweet chestnuts. He had a grinder for scissors and knives, and drawers full of all sorts of useful things for housewives. He made a bell with a loud chime to announce his arrival, and as soon as the children heard it, they came running. "There's Father Beebo!" they shouted, as if he was Father Christmas. Soon Beebo had earned enough money to be able to go back and fix the inside of the house, with Mop's help, of course. One morning, while they were working, Beebo said, "Whatever happened to my paintbrush? I had it just now." Mop, who was sitting on a beam, remarked, "You're always losing things, Beebo. Why not knit a sweater like mine that stretches so that I can keep all my tools and odds and ends in it?" At that moment, Mop lost balance, and everything dropped to the floor, including Mop and Hector. "You can use it as a parachute as well," laughed Beebo. After a few months of patience and skill, the house was completely finished. In the evenings, Beebo and Mop sat in the big living room. Sometimes they dozed beside the fire. One evening, a strange thing happened. Beebo was asleep. Mop was watching the flames when suddenly the burning logs began making a very shrill whistling sound. This was a magic signal for all the people in the statues and the pictures that had been in the house for many years to come to life. Mop rubbed his eyes as a huge balloon floated out of its frame. The cherubs on Beebo's bed flew off one by one. The three musketeers stepped out of a book and joined Don Quixote. The logs crackled in the fire and went on whistling, just as Pinocchio jumped out of a book onto Mop's knee. "Now," said a large beetle as some musical insect stepped from a French book, "let's start the symphony again." Was he dreaming? Or was it magic? Mop never found out. Later, the room seemed the same as always, but Mop knew Beebo's house was unlike any other. Mop thought it was great fun to be living in Beebo's house. Whenever he went into the living room, he had the feeling of entering a huge barn, a barn with all sorts of interesting corners and unexpected hiding places, a barn that always had surprises in store for him. He felt very much at ease. He felt he wanted to start singing. But Mop did not have a very good voice, so he said to his friend one day, "Beebo, a house without music isn't a real home. You ought to—" Beebo interrupted him. "I agree with you," he said. "I've already had an idea. We shall have music. Start the car, Mop. We're off to the shop." "The radio shop?" asked Mop. "No, radio shop indeed." Beebo had a much better idea than that. They went to a scrap metal dealer. Beebo bought a pile of scrap, took it home, worked non-stop for 2 days, and made a magnificent instrument that could play anything from Brahms to Beatles at the touch of a button. Beebo had never been so happy. Safe in the house with his friend Mop, he made things, or played music, or read exciting stories from his large library of books. Life went on quietly, calmly, and that is how it might have gone on for years and years, if only those 2 men had not come. They turned up one day with a nasty official letter. They were both plump, but one was plumper than the other, and reminded Beebo of the station master who had dismissed him. Something unpleasant was going to happen, he was sure, and he was right. "You have to leave this place," the men told him. "Why?" asked Beebo. But he could not understand their explanations. They used all sorts of big and threatening words like expropriation and industrial zone and immediate removal and reinforced concrete and demolition. It all boiled down to the fact that Beebo had to get out so that enormous blocks of offices and flats could be built on the site. Soon the workmen came. They cut down the trees that Beebo and Mop loved so much, and they brought with them lorries, cranes, bulldozers. Mighty walls of grey concrete rose on every side, hiding the sun. The house seemed to be choking amid the smoke, dust, and unbearable noise. Beebo and Mop locked all the doors and closed all the windows and shut themselves in the house. They refused to admit the 2 men when they called a second time, but the men slipped a letter under the door, and Beebo was very shaken when he read it. This is what it said: "Last warning. If you have not vacated these premises within 48 hours, we shall be compelled to call the police to evict you." When Beebo and Mop went out to buy provisions, the workmen hurled insults at them. A crane driver threatened them with his mechanical claw. Something had to be done. Beebo's first idea was to invent a giant robot, but Mop said, "Robots aren't very frightening these days. What you ought to make is a dragon, one that is shiny all over and has eyes that light up and a mouth that breathes fire." "Done," said Beebo. "Let's start work." So they made a dragon with scaly skin and gleaming eyes and a mouth that spat forth smoke and flame. It looked just like the kind of dragon that does so much damage in a fairy tale. One foggy morning, when the workmen could not see the house properly, Beebo and Mop went out with their dragon. Even through the fog it looked a fearsome creature indeed, with its piercing eyes and fiery mouth. All the workmen became terrified and fled in all directions away from the building site, leaving their tools behind them. But it did not take long for them to recover their nerve, and they were back again the next day. So were the 2 officials who came to reason with Beebo. They listed all the advantages of modern buildings, but Beebo was sure that nothing could take the place of his warm, friendly house. He and Mop barricaded themselves inside. Beebo sat down at the control panel of his mechanical orchestra and played an ear-splitting concerto that he hoped would drive everyone away. The bailiffs who arrived were not affected at all by the music. They demanded that the occupants of the house come out at once, or they would start to demolish it round their heads. "We shall have to escape from all this," the 2 friends decided. Without any plan in mind, they started to build a giant tower on the roof. Everyone on the building site stared up at them. Come down, they shouted. You can't possibly get away. Give yourselves up. The crowd laughed and jeered, thinking it would be only a matter of time before the pair would have to descend, tired and defeated. Beebo and Mop took no notice. They went on with their work steadily. The bailiffs then called in the fire brigade to make an assault on the tower. The firemen brought their tall ladders into action and were soon close to the runaways. In a very few minutes they would have caught up with the two friends. Then Beebo had a wonderful idea. Quickly he knocked together a few planks and made a set of 4 separate steps. By placing one step at a time in front of the other 3, he made a continuous stairway for Mop and himself to climb. The crowd was so amazed that they fell silent. As they watched, Beebo and Mop, with Hector under his pullover, clambered higher and higher and were speedily out of reach of even the longest ladders. Passing beyond the clouds, they were soon only a tiny spot. They went far away.